Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 303 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is Summer Rain.
My name is Jordan Willis.
My name is David Howe, and boy, oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest returning to the show for the second time. You know him, you love him. From Devolver Digital, we got back on the show, Jared Stults.
Maybe one of those things.
Yeah. You either know him, you either love him.
Yeah.
Can't be both.
You're gonna have to listen to the podcast to find out which one of those things it is.
Precisely.
Jared, thank you so much for being on the show today. We've got you on to talk all about Nintendo's PR strategy with the Switch 2 so far. It's been interesting, to say the least, regarding how they've been choosing to put out information regarding their new system. First, we're also going to talk about the news from the past week, like how we can finally pre-order the Nintendo Switch 2. We actually know that we can do that by the time you're listening to this. And Paul Rudd has returned to form and is doing commercials for it as well. But before all of that, how's everyone's past week been?
We're doing pretty good. I do have to say, sorry, we did have to bump Paul Rudd, everybody, for Jared from Devolver here. So apologies to everybody, but we'll have him on next show for sure. No, I'm doing all right. I had a pretty good time. I mostly this weekend just binged all of The Pit, the TV show. We were talking about it a little bit beforehand. It's like a medical drama. So I'm like kind of really like I'm coming down from being like super stressed this whole weekend, if that makes sense. It was a very stressful situation because I kind of binged it all, which is not, I wouldn't really recommend that as like the way to watch that TV show necessarily. But I feel like I am now like a first year medical student. I feel like I know what I'm talking about and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm doing all right. Other than that, just playing like a shit ton of blueprints and having lots of fun, but I'll talk about that at the end of the show.
I'm doing all right. What did I do this past weekend? I went to San Antonio, saw my folks, saw my grandmas. It was pretty enjoyable time seeing all them. Just a little tired today, but doing pretty good. Also on my way down there, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, I had a very nice interaction in the world that made me have a little bit more faith in humanity. Was just on Facebook Marketplace. I met someone to trade some games I had for a PS5 console, brand new, disc edition, unopened, from the original lineup. But yeah, so I now have a PS5, and I now have for about the next month and a half every current gen console that you can have
For the next month and a half.
Congratulations.
Nicely done. Yes. Very well worded. Not much to report on my end. I was just really sick this past week, and just rested a lot. Been watching a lot of My Hero Academia and playing a lot of Metaphor Refantazio. So that's me. Yeah.
Hell yeah. You're getting over that con crud finally.
Yeah. I'm finally feeling better now. My mom delivered soup to me yesterday that my grandmother made as she like shoved it in my hands at my doorstep. She called it Polish penicillin and then quickly left. And I love living close enough to my family that I can do that now. Or that can happen.
Nice.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah.
What about you, Jared? You have a pretty good last week?
Man, it's been crazy busy on my end. The beginning of the month was my girlfriend's birthday. So her mom came into town, stayed with us for about a week. And then after she left, her best friend from her hometown also came in and stayed with us for about a week. And while that happened, the motherboard on my PC died. So I had to like replace all of that. And then while entertaining company, so I got like way behind on all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh man. And then I had like a gig this past week, so I was like trying to practice for that and stuff too. So it's been a lot, but it's calming down now, so that's good.
Hell yeah.
Well, last week we talked about the video game Qualia, all about, differentiating AI and humanity. And wanted to give a quick shout out to Shade in our Discord, who said, how many podcasts can cover the latest self-inflicted American boondoggle, the newest additions to the NSO Genesis app, the journey of a first-time game developer, the nature of existence, and the future of humanity/AI in a single episode and have it all make sense? Only one that matters.
And that's Radio Lab.
That's that's super high praise. Go listen to last week's episode.
I was really happy with that episode. Alcy was a really great guest, and it was a really fun conversation to have. It's nice to get a little existential on the podcast.
Sure. Yeah. And just in a really productive way, considering the general landscape for that conversation online right now too. Right.
Yeah.
So I thought it was great for that reason too. If you enjoy our podcast, then it is super helpful to support us in all of the different ways that you can find us. Share the podcast with a friend, leave a review on Apple or Spotify, post a comment on Reddit. We're also an entirely self-produced podcast. So if you're interested in supporting us monetarily, you can head on over to our Patreon and chuck us a buck. And of course, especially go to YouTube. You can watch us. You can see our faces.
That's true.
And give us the old classic like, comment, and subscribe. And with that, we're going to talk about this week's news, starting with the fact that by the time you're listening to this, you're probably going to be pre-ordering the Nintendo Switch this evening, tonight, right?
Yeah, timeline's a little weird, but
let's all get on the same level right now. So it's technically Thursday, but it's Thursday midnight Eastern time, which most of our listeners are in Central time, which actually means it's 11 p.m. the 23rd, right?
From what I understand, this was announced kind of recently with some like pricing stuff that I'm sure we'll get to in a second. But it's like I think retailers are dropping their pre-orders on Thursday. And I actually watched a whole Kit and Krista. They did a whole pre-order guide, like video or whatever. And
sure.
It was actually a really helpful video. So if you're listening to this on the day this comes out, that's probably a good one to listen to. But I'll try to give you all the hits. It's basically that I think it's like Best Buy, Target, like Walmart. I think these are all going live at like midnight Eastern on the 24th, which is Thursday. So that, would be like for Pacific time people, that's like 9 p.m., which is actually pretty nice, I think, for them. But then I think GameStop is actually on Thursday, like when stores open. And they're even like, I think GameStop they have some pre-orders set aside just for in-person people in line. So on the day, on Thursday, if I don't get a pre-order from Best Buy like the night before, I think my plan is to go and like wait in a line at GameStop because there's a GameStop like right by my house. And so like, I think that might be kind of like might be kind of fun. I don't know. Wait in line so you can get a pre-order. We'll see. But there's a few different things to do.
Yeah. I forget that they used to do that too. I mean, I guess they still do that because they're doing it now that you go in person to pre-order a game. Wow. Also, with the news of pre-orders going back up in both the United States and Canada, yes, the price of the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2 bundle with Mario Kart World are remaining the same as originally announced, but the price of accessories is going up. It varies amongst different accessories, but generally speaking, it's approximately $5 across the board, give or take, on some things. Interestingly enough, Mario Kart World Bundle is only going to be available through fall 2025. Do we think that, it's probably only, I think that's them saying that it's actually only going to be available for pre-orders, right?
Maybe, yeah. Until it gets replaced by like a holiday bundle, I would imagine.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably going to have the same shit in it, I would imagine. But
what
do you have to... Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that, so my thinking, when you say replace with a holiday bundle, that makes me think that said holiday bundle is going to be more than $500.
That I think is the case.
We're going to bundle it again later, but it's going to be more if you missed out on the first shipment of it.
But the trick is like, what is that price point? Is it $525? Because $510 seems like such an odd price to charge. Nintendo doesn't really like those non-round numbers for their consoles. It's either 300, 350, 400, 450, it's just
not necessarily. When the 3DS went down in price, it was what, 170?
Yeah, 179 maybe.
Right?
Yeah, something like that.
It's not out of the question.
It's definitely a little weird. I $525, I can't really see them doing that because then you're only really saving $5 on Mario Kart. So it's kind of what's the point if it's an $80 game? But yeah, I don't really know. I mean, what do you think about some of these pricing strategies, Jared? Like now that they've kind of like come out and they said like the console isn't getting a cut, but the accessories are going up. Does that concern you at all, or do you think that's like a fair compromise?
I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, right? Because I feel like any new console, when it always comes out, that seems to be the reaction from everyone is like, what? It's that much, Like,
Yeah.
I remember with the PS3, it was like, no way, I'm paying that much for a fucking
That was
PS3.
$600. Right?
Yeah, right.
It's fucking crazy, man.
So yeah, I mean, it's kind of when the new stuff, it's like it really is just a matter of like, we got to just see how it does at launch, and then as it goes on, like I feel like they kind of figure it out a little bit, and then it'll even out. That's my hopeful side anyway.
Yeah, there's definitely some of these peripherals that are going up in price that makes them a bit less desirable. You got to go out and grab it. Yeah. It's like, I think the camera going up to 55, I think that's going to make a lot of people just find cheap USB-C webcams to stick on their Switch. So I kind of think that's not going to really do any wonders for them. $85 for the Pro controller is a tough pill that I will be swallowing, but I won't like it. And a couple others. I think Joy-Cons are now pretty expensive as well. The dock is now like over $100. It's like 110 or 115 or something like that for the whole like dock system. So I think it's good that they were able to figure this out, because the tariffs are still a thing. It's like 10% tariffs on everybody is a lot still, like that is enough to cause major pain to a lot of these like manufacturers. So I think that it's good that they were able to kind of figure out a way to keep the console the same price, especially with all the pricing backlash that we've been hearing online. But yeah, I don't know. As far as pre-orders go, Jordan, are you thinking you're going to be pre-ordering this console? Are you trying to get this console day one?
Yeah, of course. What do you?
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
So you scrunched your face up like your answer was going to be no.
No, of course. I was just scrunching my face. Like, what a ridiculous question. No, I'm going to be trying to pre-order this thing as soon as I can. I might try to get two just to have one, because I know someone in my family or my friend group is going to be like, I wasn't able to get one. And I want to like be able to have one extra for non-scalper prices for my homies. But so I might try to get two. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, for the controllers and stuff going up, I feel like, and we can get more into this in the main topic, but it's just kind of strange. Like, these prices are not that much more than like a PS5 controller, I think is like $75. So the Pro controller being $85 is kind of like same ish. I feel like whatever the PS6 comes out, a PS6 controller is going to be $85. Like, I feel like they're just the first to hit the market with these prices going up personally. But so I'm not like really balking at it, but also like, I get it. I get the concern, because it's a slippery slope of, hopefully this is just like, okay, the prices just go up, and that's just what it is for the next 8 years of the Switch 2,
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, PS5 just went up in price again,
Yeah, well, not in the US, but
still, I mean, it is like stuff is right. We're now in the era where console prices don't go down over time; they go up over time. So it's like, I think at the end of the day, and this is something we'll obviously be talking about a lot in this main topic, but it's just like, it is chaos out there right now. And I think that like Nintendo is doing their best to weave their way through constantly changing political turmoil, pricing with tech issues going on, constantly just changing every single day. Also, yeah, just like customer dissatisfaction at the moment, right? And like, who knows how much of that actually will come to bear when we see actual numbers for sales and stuff like this. A lot of it might just be hot air, like you were saying, Jared. There is always people that balk at the price and have sticker shock at the very beginning. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to see.
Yeah. Similarly related, next in the news is Anbernic, company well known for making just handheld emulators, like the classic. They're known for like their kind of stupid sounding names, like the RG35XX Plus, etc. They have stopped U.S. shipments due to tariffs. It is become too. I mean, and we're seeing a lot of U.S. companies do this, but it's become too costly to ship to the United States right now.
Yeah, especially when it's like a Chinese company and you've got somewhere between 145 and 245% tariffs. I don't know where they landed on that coming out of China, but yeah, that's a bummer. Have any of you guys messed with these Chinese handhelds?
I haven't. No. I've heard a lot of good things about them, though. Like a lot of reviewers that I listen to speak really highly on these, and they always make jokes about the names of them. But
yeah, I love my Anbernic RG35XXSP, which is the official title of that system.
Yeah, see, exactly.
But it's it plays just like a Game Boy Advance SP. It's like a really nice thing that I tend to actually keep in my pocket like almost all the time. I like walking around with it. I always like having a distraction piece nearby if I'm ever in a line or something and I don't want to just like doom scroll, I think I'm looking on Amazon right now and it's looking like you can still get them for like about $80. So it's maybe they've got a bunch of stock already. And once those run out, it's going to be hell. But it's like, I also like just recently canceled my Amazon Prime subscription. I've like not been shopping on Amazon for like ethical reasons lately, like basically since January.
Yeah.
I think you're already starting to see prices go up everywhere on there. And I think it's really going to start skyrocketing soon. So just kind of a bummer to see. This is like a really lively market in the US as people that were playing a lot of these emulators. So it's a shame to see.
Yeah. Speaking of shame to see, next we're going to talk about Nintendo is now officially going after the leaker behind the Terra leak. So we talked about this a few months ago when it happened. Biggest data breach ever. That's why they're calling it. It's no longer right. It was no longer a gig leak. It is a Terra leak. The amount of information that this leaker got from Nintendo and Game Freak. Now Nintendo is officially trying to go after whoever did this, and honestly, like for ethical reasons, good, because like a lot of personal information, feelings about IP and copyright aside, like a lot of sensitive information was also in this, right? So it's problematic for that reason. But yeah, apparently Nintendo filed the request on April 18th seeking the personal information of the leaker, that we know the Discord username, Game Freak Out.
Great name.
Yeah, I mean, it really does.
Let him go.
Really does.
Luigi.
This is not. Okay, David, do you feel like it's the same?
What, as Luigi Mangione?
Yeah.
No, I was just making a joke.
Okay.
No, but I was just saying he's got a good name, and Luigi's got a good name too. So
okay. Okay.
That's all that matters for me. I'm a simpleton.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, you're right in that it's like, this did, I pour over leaks myself. I'm not going to take the high road and say that I didn't download the ROM for Pokemon Picross from the Giga Leak when that happened. Are you kidding me? I even told the creators of Picross that I downloaded that from the leak, and they were very surprised by that. But it's like, I love this stuff too. But like you said, yes, it does suck that a bunch of personal employee information is like out online. Like it's essentially doxing like everybody who's worked at Game Freak for the last like few decades. So it's like that's no good. It's like you would think that if you are going to initiate some big hack of servers and disseminate it online, you'd have the wherewithal to like go through and like do a little bit of due diligence, but maybe that's just not the kind of people that we're working with that end up being like big time hackers and leakers. I don't know. But yeah, I think Nintendo's within their right. I think though there is a degree of like, the more that you make a big deal out of this stuff, I think it's like almost the more people are reminded that all this shit is out there. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like for instance, there was a horror movie. I forget what it's called. I think it's called maybe Return to Tomorrow or something like that. But it was
Escape
a movie.
From Tomorrow?
Escape from Tomorrow. You know what I'm talking about?
The Disneyland movie, right?
That's right. Yeah. It was a movie that was shot in Disneyland. And it's basically like a horror movie set at Disneyland, and it's about this family. And basically the filmmakers shot it completely incognito. They just had DSLRs. So they made it look like they were just taking stills of their family while they were actually shooting these scenes in Disneyland. And Disney would have been well within their right to sue the shit out of them, to bury the movie, to do all this kind of stuff. But I think they just let it go because at the end of the day, it was like a no budget indie film that, they're never going to be able to actually distribute because they don't own the rights to anything. So they were kind of just like, we're just not going to go after this, So I think in some instances, it's probably best for Nintendo to just kind of turn the other cheek. I don't know if this is one of those, but just something to think about.
There's so many other instances of Nintendo being so happy in situations where they absolutely shouldn't be, going after businesses that have nothing to do with Nintendo, but because of a certain namesake, they feel like they have to protect themselves, which they're not protecting themselves from anything.
I just wanted one quick correction before someone on the internet says it. It was filmed at Disney World, not Disneyland. The one in Florida. It is a big difference. Yeah. It is a big difference because they filmed in like Epcot and stuff, which is only at the Disney World park. As the only one here who cares about theme parks. Anyway.
And micro budget underground film, apparently.
Yes, dude. Well, when that came out, I was like, dude, that's the balls.
It's a sick movie. Yeah. I've been watching a lot of like banned films recently, so I'm on a kick.
I bought that on Blu-ray when it first came out because I was like, I don't know how many runs they're going to do with this. So it's like, got to keep this.
It's in black and white too, right? Am I imagining? Yeah. Crazy movie.
But yeah, it's interesting too. The subpoena is for like their name, address, phone number, and email of the leaker. So I'm curious if this person was smart enough to cover their tracks or if they use their actual information for this Discord username. I'm like, I imagine if you're a hacker, that might not go very far. But maybe if they are able to track like IP addresses back to where they're like located and kind of go that way. But I'm just kind of curious, like what that leaker actually used, if he used his we don't know, use their actual name. I don't know.
I'm imagining right now just like it's like the FBI headquarters and it's like, this is our perpetrator, and they just hold up a picture. It's like a VTuber and they're like okay, hit the streets and find them.
God, oh my God, what if that was the real reason that Guru, there was like, there's a popular VTuber that was just like recently like they call it graduated when like VTubers and idols like are retiring, like it's called graduation. But it's been heavily theorized that her graduation was like forced for like
Lord have mercy.
Like different for like they're calling it like creative differences or whatever, but like maybe she's actually the hacker. I don't know.
We cracked it here on the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Japanese things that our audience hasn't heard of, recently a Japanese man in January was found. He was arrested in January and was recently found guilty on April 14th for modifying and selling Nintendo Switch consoles. He's been given 3 years probation on a 2-year prison sentence and a fine of 500,000 yen, which comes to about $3,500 in USD, which makes him the first person to be arrested in Japan and punished for modding and selling a Nintendo Switch. Is this setting a precedent? The first person really that has been caught for this.
It's one of those like you got to do it. It's not like it seems like they even went really. Honestly, that seems pretty lenient. If I'm being honest, like $3,500 and 3 years of probation instead of having to serve 2 years in prison seems pretty lax.
Yeah, when it comes to like fines in courts in Japan, it's weird. You see stuff like this all the time where it's like. They're like, oh my God, I was just hit with these fines, and it works out to like $600. But it's like this summary judgment is like huge, You'd see this all the time. So I don't know. I think it's almost more of like it's on your record, you're tarnished, like sort of thing, than that might, the actual monetary value. Yeah.
I'm sure that like more like things that don't seem like a big deal to us maybe carry more weight, like with you, like when you're applying for jobs or just anything public facing, maybe, right?
I think at the end of the day, whatever, it's just you should be able to mod a Switch. You should just be able to mod a Switch. I think it's fine. It's like if you buy a thing, then you should be able to.
But you should be able to sell them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably not, but whatever. It's fine. Like I'm saying,
I think you should be able to mod your
own
hardware, and I think that just means that you don't get the warranty on it anymore. I don't know.
You can sell an unmodified one, so it's like I'm not saying that you should just all go out and pirate video games. Okay, Jared from Devolver. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is just like again, this just kind of screams to me like, yes, they're making a precedent out of this, but they're not going to be going after everybody who does this. They're doing it with like one guy, and this is the one that gets the stories told about it. And then here we are talking about it. And people will be like, oh, I don't want to be that guy, And so it's just like, that's what they're doing here. They're making the example out of this person right now. Yeah.
I think the weird thing though is that like compared to someone like Gary Bowser, received a fairly lenient sentence, where Gary Bowser received a particularly harsh
Yeah,
sentence.
he's like a Nintendo slave for the rest of his life, basically.
Yeah. So like that to me is like the difference. And it's just interesting, like that difference culturally in the court system is like, I don't know, is it more okay in Japan, or the stain is something like what Summer was saying is like when you're applying for jobs or something. But all I know is that he, in a month and a half, he has the ability to do one of the funniest things ever by being the first Japanese man to modify and sell a Nintendo Switch 2. So
time will tell.
I think this is maybe that questioning, Jordan, I think does lead into like a larger conversation about just what punishment looks like globally and in different spaces, and how like what we're used to it looking like with a Western lens, or even more specifically like the United States. Like, yeah, it does seem lenient to us, but I think that's probably closer to what it's like in a lot of other places, So that can be next week's episode. But for now, we're going to talk about even more Nintendo confusion, which is that it's been confirmed that some Nintendo Switch 2 cartridges are also going to work on the original Nintendo Switch. For example, this has been confirmed with the next Rune Factory game, Guardians of Azuma. The Switch 2 edition specifically is going to also work on the original Switch. I actually think this kind of makes sense because it's an investment in future buyers of the Switch 2, that it's going to be compatible eventually with a system that you'll probably get, right? If you're willing to pay a little bit more for it at the time.
Yeah. This is cool, I think. I think this is great.
I think so too.
Also just feeds more into the main topic, which is just like Nintendo had no messaging on this whatsoever. Like in the Direct, like they talked about how the Switch 2 cartridge is red and the Switch 1 cartridge is gray. But like they didn't say anything else. That's like all they said, right? So there was a lot of confusion because on the box, it says this contains the original game plus the thing. And then some people thought that the Switch 2 edition upgrade was like a download. I mean, it is true that it contains the original game and the upgrade pack, but it's like that's so that you can play the original game on an original console, right? So I think this is a great thing. Also, cheers to Marvelous. They're like the only ones that have been like actually transparent about this. Like Nintendo has not talked about this at all. Like, but Marvelous now with Rune Factory have made like multiple public comments about like how Nintendo hardware, like hard copies of games, like will actually work on the new system. So that's really cool. But yeah, it's great. And it doesn't sound either like it's going to be like it's got this on there and then it's also got this and then it'll install it to your thing and you have to patch it and whatever. It sounds like it's just a 64 gig card that has the original version of the game and the Nintendo Switch version of the game on the card, and it just loads whichever one is cold. So I think that's great.
I'm also already thinking, it occurred to me while you were talking, grandmas. Long gone are the days of grandmas entering a game store and getting a game for the wrong system. Now they can't go wrong. They can get something for either the Switch or the Switch 2 because they can't remember exactly what it is that their grandchild has. I'm serious, right? Like this has been a huge problem with Xbox, like notoriously, of grandmas and parents just not knowing. Like, I mean, got me when I was in my 20s. I'm like, what Xbox is? I don't know. But I like literally
going from 360 to 1. You didn't understand that? That was pretty basic,
right? And then 1 to 1S or 1 plus or whatever the hell they were doing. And then, I mean, literally just last summer, I went to GameStop with a friend who wanted to buy Elden Ring. And when we were in the car and he was like looking at the case for it, and I was like, "Hey, man, you have a PS4, right?" And like realizes that he bought the PS5 version of it and was like, shit. So we got to like turn around and go back in and like, we don't have to do that anymore. But you bought the wrong version? Like, no, you didn't. But not all games. We'll find out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one confusion where that's is the kid that wants like Tropical Freeze, like for their Switch, and their grandma buys them Donkey Kong Bonanza, and that will not work on their right. So it's like
right. Yeah. Oh yeah, because it'll be the games that are right, like specifically both on the Switch and the Switch 2. Sure.
Yeah, this is Nintendo Switch 2 versions.
Yeah. Continuing on with the Nintendo Switch 2 versions, Paul Rudd is in an ad for the Nintendo Switch 2, basically pays homage to the commercial that he did for the Super NES, which also leads to further evidence that the Switch 2 was originally going to be called the Super Switch, based on some of the dialogue in this commercial as well. But we are sure that they wanted to avoid any additional confusion that the Wii U had. So this commercial's cute, with some fun cameos in it.
Yeah, did you see this commercial, Jared? Do you have a chance to check it out?
No, I didn't. He doesn't do Celery Man, though, does he?
No. He's not pumping up the 43.
And I'm not watching it.
Yeah.
He does do Tane, though.
Oh!
Does he do Tane? Really?
No, but Tane is something I could get into.
Nude Tane.
This ad was like kind of cringy to me.
I thought so too, dude.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "Hey, he's back! It's so cute!" And I'm like, "Oh boy,
what a shill, dude!" Like, I like Paul Rudd enough, but he seems like he'll do anything for me. And you know what?
That's what having a job is.
I don't know.
Are you saying you wouldn't do this for money?
You're telling you wouldn't do your job for money?
I do think this is the first time that I've ever looked at Paul Rudd and be like, oh, hey, he's kind of aging a little bit.
That's also the overwhelming consensus, I feel like.
Yeah. I'm sure he wouldn't have done it if he'd realized that all the discourse would be about that he kind of finally looks a little old.
I blame the gaffers.
That's like part of the point of the commercial too, was like, oh, haha, you're so old, right? It's like
he's wearing his old 90s get up and everything.
Yeah, and the back and forth between him and the young girl of like, oh, you should know how to do this. You're not old enough to drive, but like he's out of touch because he's old. Haha. So
yeah.
But also old gamers rise up. I don't know. I was like talking to my mom about it this weekend where she was like, yeah, I have this one client who is like in his 60s, and I asked him what he does in his free time. And he said, I'm a gamer. And she's like confused by that because he's like in his 60s. And he's like, no, I've been playing video games since the 80s. Like, and I still play video games now. So I think that is actually one really powerful thing about this ad is that it does showcase an older demographic playing video games still after 30 years, which I think is kind of cool.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And together. Yeah.
Super together, they say.
Yeah.
We are in the era now where like old folks' homes are going to be filled with people like tatted up, listening to hip hop and like playing video games. And that's like pretty cool.
Yeah. It would be pretty cool that for old folks' homes to still exist when we're old.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving on.
About the hospice land parties.
Hell yeah, dog. Dripped out with my morphine drip. You know what I mean? Let's go.
That's how I want to go out, surrounded by my friends and Super Smash Brothers. All right.
Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 14. So to round out our news for the week, the Mario Kart World Direct happened last week, Thursday morning. It was basically an extended overview trailer. We got to see confirmation of some of the new courses, and it's a combination, of like brand new courses combined with some nostalgia courses. But at the same time, all of these courses make up what is the Mario Kart world that the game takes place in. They emphasized a lot of the new characters, more emphasis on the new modes of gameplay. What were some of y'all's like major takeaways from this direct?
I was really curious how many like old courses they would have, because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe had become just like the beefiest Mario Kart by having, 128 courses, or am I overshooting it?
That sounds right.
No, it was like 98.
98.
Yeah.
It may as well have been.
Just 98 courses having from like the entire span of this series was awesome. And I'm like, that is the one major thing from jumping from this to the next one. I'm like, how many of those old courses are you going to bring into the mix? And I'm curious to see how many of these nostalgia courses they bring in. If they're going to be some like repeats from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe from the like tour levels or things like that.
We do know at least one of them is. Also, I misspoke. It's 96. God damn it. I was off by 2. But what is it, the ice cream stage from Mario Kart Tour?
Yeah.
That is in Mario Kart.
Oh, yes.
So,
that's my favorite. That's my best time and trial.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I'm
it looks a lot better too. It got like a big makeover.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah. So there's been footage of that. I am, I think, a little, I was definitely underwhelmed by this. I wanted it to be bigger and beefier. And before this, again, talking about Nintendo's messaging, I think it was maybe Bill Trinan who was like, just watch the Mario Kart Direct that's coming out on Thursday and you'll know why this game is $80. Mm. And I don't think that this did that. I think that not that I'm saying this game, I'm not starting the pricing debate on whether or not this game is worth $80 necessarily, but it's just like, I didn't see much new in this that they hadn't already shown through the Direct itself,
yes.
The Treehouse, a lot of the commercials that have been airing, So I think kind of the biggest thing for me, the biggest takeaway that I got was that the kind of charge jump thing that is happening, that seems to be like the gimmick this go round. Like if zero G or anti-grav and the 2 item thing was the gimmick in Mario Kart 8. I feel like this time it's like the ability to like jump whenever you want. So you could probably jump over incoming shells. You can jump over other players. You can also jump to then grind or wall ride and stuff like that. So that seems really cool to me. I'm really hyped about that as somebody who just loves racing and Mario Kart, But I was a little disappointed. I was really fully expecting like, here's the single player campaign. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, that would make it be like, yeah, okay, I get why this is $80 now, because they put a whole kind of single player campaign into this thing, but they didn't really show anything off there as far as that's concerned.
Makes me think that whoever said that knows more about the game and expected other information to be in this Direct that they didn't release.
Yeah, I think calling it a Direct was just like a misfire.
Me too.
Because it does really feel like the extended overview trailers that they've been releasing, because it's exact same like kind of style or whatever. There was like some stuff to be excited about, like just seeing the free roam with like the P switches and hidden coins, hidden panels. They said something like hundreds of P switches, which makes me question how big this world is and like what exactly all those are going to do. But at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, I kind of knew all of this beforehand because I watched the tree houses, and just showing me a couple new courses or a couple new characters and new items was like not enough. That being said, the new items do look pretty cool. Like the coin shell and the ice flower. I also really like just the mega mushroom. It's pretty sick. Looks pretty cool. And then the rewind feature looks really interesting to see how that's going to go. But like star at the bottom can be used in free roam and when playing races solo, which makes sense. Like not putting that in the multiplayer, but
well, it does work to where it's like you're going backwards while everybody continues going forward. So it's not like you're just rewinding the whole game. It's just like people are still getting ahead of you while you're trying to fix your shit,
Yeah, but I just like was picturing like the typical Nintendo Switch online experience and then adding ability to go backwards in time, and just my head was like, no, this is not going to go well. But then I was like, oh, okay, it's not going to be in the online multiplayer. That makes perfect sense that it's a single player only thing. Seems more like a cool way to just like explore routes and really like fine tune your pathways and find secrets and stuff like that, which I think is like exactly what it's for, which is like really beautiful. But yeah, I don't know. I'm mixed. I'm definitely going to get this game already just because I love Mario Kart, but it didn't sell me more than I was already sold. Like I didn't feel more willing to buy it after this. I was already going to buy it, but this didn't make me more or less excited.
Well, I was more excited once it was pointed out to me in the Discord by David of Pauline doing a jump out of her car in her bodysuit in the rain. So that was really...
she was wearing like some latex.
I think it was her normal. Hot. I think it was her normal race suit, but it was like the lighting and like weather conditions.
She was like wet.
Yes,
she was just slick.
Listen, she was wet and she was slick, and that's what matters, man.
It was working for me. Whatever it was.
Me too. I saved that image and I shared it in like 10 other Discords.
Yeah. Jared, what about you? Are you excited for Mario Kart World?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of everything you guys have said. I just kind of echo same. Like, honestly, it's like I think it looks cool. But yeah, like there wasn't anything more in the direct that I'm like, oh yeah, because I like Mario Kart, but I've never been like a huge Mario Kart guy. And to be completely honest, I thought Jordan invited me on this episode so he could talk about how trash I am at Mario Kart. I literally thought that's what the whole point of this was going to be.
Wow, you thought this was going to be a yourself. You thought this was a roast? The roast of Jared?
He's like, oh, Mario Kart World. I was like, this son of a bitch is getting back at me for something I did on set. So yeah, I suck at Mario Kart. It's kind of like a nothing, but I like it. It's fun. So yeah, I was kind of hoping for more. I was like, a single player thing that would be what would really, really sell me for it. And I'm still hoping it's there. But yeah, it looks neat, and I'll definitely get it. Yeah.
That's so funny. You willingly came on thinking we were just going to roast you for an hour.
Well, just specifically Jordan. I was like, he's going to bring me on about the Mario Kart episode. It's just going to be an excuse to be like, do you know what this motherfucker, like, he's so bad.
Okay, for the record, Jared is so good at every other video game. Like, he pretty much consistently beats me at Smash. He's beaten Elden Ring like five times.
Yeah.
Like something like that. So it's like really funny to me that Jared's like the one game I can consistently beat him at is Mario Kart. And that's it. That's like everything else I can stomp.
You're kind of bringing up a good point though, Jared, in that it's like I feel like most people are like you. Like this game has sold what, like 80 million copies or something, like like of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, like it, and most of those are casual gamers that just like to drink and play Mario Kart and hang with their friends and do the 4-player split screen and at parties or whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe every once in a while they'll play online. Maybe they play through the Grand Prix in single player, but I think it's mostly just like casual gamers that are playing Mario Kart. So it's like I am like kind of surprised that there isn't more for the people that aren't like just hardcore racers, you know. Like I thought like a single player campaign was like Swish, you know, like it would make sense, you know, especially with the big world, right? And I guess that's what they're trying to do. It's like trying to capture that kind of that general like Breath of the Wild audience, you know. Breath of the Wild, highest selling Zelda game of all time. So I think that they know that these open world games do really well. But I'm surprised that there isn't more like run around and beat a boss and do all that. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe, like you said, maybe we'll see
it'll
more.
Be there.
It just seems like this was the place to show it off. You know. So
yeah, I'm sure there's lots of secrets to be found in that realm mode for sure. Well, that's this week's news. So we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we will be talking all about in more detail again just the confusing PR strategy for the Nintendo Switch 2 and what we think they're up to. So, see you soon. And we're back. And we are ready to talk about everything that Nintendo has been doing with their Nintendo Switch 2 messaging, their PR, their slow rollout of it. You know, there were theorized complications with incoming tariffs that, you know, we all kind of predicted and then saw that to be true. Generally, like temp check, how is everybody kind of just feeling generally about what their messaging has been looking like?
Confused.
Okay.
To be honest, like I'm mostly say that because I'm trying to think of like the everyday person, what they're going to see versus like the people who are really stoked for this, like the gamers, and the gamers are having the exact response I predicted. And then I talk with like some other people and they're like, oh, I'm so excited for this. This looks great. Like nothing about it seems off. So the whole thing just feels confusing. Like who exactly are they marketing to? And where's the disconnect? I don't know, honestly. So that's what I mean. Just the rollout has also been all over the place. Like some things are really tech heavy. Some things are more like game focused heavy. Some things are called, like we were saying, the Mario Kart Direct felt like a long play trailer. So like where the messaging is being muddled in the way that like it's not consistent with prior releases. And I don't know, like in prior things, and it doesn't need to be, but it's like, I don't know. I'm just like mixed. Like I'm excited, but I also am coming from a place where I am able to afford these things. And I'm like thinking, if I'm a gamer who already spent my money on a PS5, like where is it? Like, where's the benefit to me? You know what I mean? But so I'm just confused overall, like what the overall goal is.
Yeah. I'm not as doom and gloom as I think a lot of people have been recently. But I will not, lie and say that there hasn't been kind of like a pall over the whole rollout of the Switch 2. I think everybody kind of assumed that just like Nintendo finally announces the Switch 2 and it's going to be a huge event and everyone's just going to be like super pumped. And I think the $450 price took some of the wind out of people's sails. And I think that not only that, it was like that was not included in the direct, right? Like that was information that came out like later that day and like press releases or whatever, right? So I think that is a bit emblematic of, I think, where people are feeling kind of a little so-so. It's not like a big celebratory time like I think a lot of people thought it was going to be. And I wonder if it's for a few different reasons. I think that it could be that some of this might be I think most of what we're hearing as far as like sort of tepid response or a little bit of disappointment is from these like online gaming circles right now. I think it's the nerds that chirp about the shit on the internet already, right? That don't really matter. They're all going to get it, So it's like the fact that like they're all complaining about it. It's like they're not who Nintendo is trying to sell this stuff to anyway. I do think though that mostly this is going okay. I think, do I think that their messaging is not as clear as it was with Switch 1 or even Wii U? I think, yeah, I think now Wii U is a big failure, so let's not like try to mimic that, right? But I think we've talked about this a bunch that like we are now witnessing a Nintendo that is outside of their comfort zone, like we are past the Reggie and Iwata era of Nintendo where they were always kind of doing something a little quirky, a little unexpected. I have here in the resources in the notes, something that Shuhei Yoshida from X-PlayStation said about Nintendo losing its identity, which you've brought up multiple times, Summer, which we can talk about later in this topic. But I think that they're doing okay. And I think actually for me, it seems like they're kind of listening to their fans for the first time in a really long time. I also just think a lot of this was leaked beforehand. So a lot of the people that are chirping about this stuff online, there were no big, huge surprises really in the Switch 2 Direct. So whenever they hear new news, it's always like, oh, the stuff isn't on the card, or like, oh, it's got blah, 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 blah. And so it's kind of, everybody's just kind of picking apart all the announcements that have been happening since then and sort of looking for things to complain about. That's sort of like my overall feel on some of this. But I do think, and I'm not trying to just completely defend Nintendo here, because I do think that they're kind of in this uncharted territory where they're not really sure what they're doing as clearly as they did in the past. You've got Doug Bowser, who's not like the greatest spokesman for the company necessarily. You've got guys like Bill Trinan, who have never been like, we're the big PR guys, that they're kind of having to shoulder a lot of the burden of Nintendo doing that thing that they do, where they hold a lot of stuff close to their chest. I don't know. It's just been an interesting time, and it's definitely worth talking about. Jared, do you have any thoughts on like kind of the way that Nintendo's been rolling out a lot of this information about the new console?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it is a little confusing, kind of the way it's going about it. And the concern that I have about it is, right, so it's like for people like us, like obviously we know all of that, we follow it, and then like you're saying, those like internet circle jerk nerds or whatever are going to complain about everything. But like I'm thinking like, okay, like Nintendo has a huge market on casual fans, right? And I remember, so like my girlfriend, for example, she was like, "What are you talking about the podcast about?" I said, "Switch 2." And so, yeah, some people at work were talking about that. And I showed her the thing, and her response was like, "Well, how is it not this? Like, why is it not the Switch? I don't, because there's a Switch OLED, there's and I was like, yeah, like for us, we know, well, it's a new console. That makes sense. But I think it's like, yeah, like some of the things, like some of the other features kind of coming out through other parties and stuff like that, I worry. And then with the price of everything, right, that like there's going to be a whole sect of casual fans that are going to be like, well, why would I pay that much money for just the upgraded Switch? They don't really kind of have, and it's similar to like the Wii U, where like people didn't buy the Wii U because they're like, well, I already have a Wii. Why would I buy, not realizing that it's it's its own thing. So that's the thing, is like, I think that could be a little more clear, but I do echo your sentiments too, that I think it is a little bit blown out of proportion, the kind of negative side, but that's the internet,
Yeah. Or gamers, maybe.
In general, yeah.
Summer, what about you?
Maybe I'm like somewhere in the middle of it, because my friends are kind of split of folks like us who are like way into this and are too online and are ready to be hypercritical about every single little thing, or ready to be like too excited as well. And then like the casual folks who are like, oh, it's the new Switch. Like, yeah, that's cool. That's exciting. I'm not seeing as much of like the confusion about it, like not knowing what it is, because I feel like PlayStation has kind of already laid the foundation of like, yes, this is the next iteration of a thing.
With one number higher than
easy,
right? Yeah. Like if anything, I feel like it is the clearest way to distinguish that it is a new thing, other than, like an entirely new name of a system. For me personally, a little bit of my excitement was dampened by the amount of entirely accurate leaks that were like perfectly correct right beforehand, like right before the Direct, because I usually do a pretty good job of avoiding leaks, generally speaking. But some of it was just too noteworthy to ignore. Just like the level of leakage, I suppose. But like, I'm also like the wrong person to talk to, because like I was excited about the Wii U. I bought a Wii U at launch. I was one of those people that was like, my baby, you are misunderstood. I don't know why no one else went to buy you.
I did love my Wii U.
Yeah. People came to my house to play Pokken, right? Because I was the only one that had it.
I think one of the big things that I just kind of was thinking about hearing everyone talk about it is like, when you get the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 5, the realistic graphics get ramped up, right? Like, so every console generation you go from HD to more HD to 4K, the graphics get more and more realistic over time, but Nintendo games are way more artistic. The art styles are more like, not esoteric, but they're just more like leaning into artistry versus realism. So when you look at a game like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which still looks fantastic to this day and is 10 years old, and you look at that side by side of Mario Kart World, like how discerning is the everyday casual gamer being like, this looks so much better than this, right? Like because it leans into the art side where it like doesn't look exactly the same. It like definitely looks better, but like how much better is that going to make me want to pay more money to get the new console? I don't know.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this a lot in my head on like if Mario Kart World was the right launch game for this system or not, because it does. Because that's a great point. It's like what shows an iterative console is oh my God, Mario's got pecs now, and you can see all his pores, and and it's ray traced, and it looked like super gritty and realistic and whatever, right? I mean, obviously, I don't want that. Nintendo would never do that, but it's like they're kind of doing that with Metroid, but even that is like a regular Switch game, and Metroid just like doesn't sell. So they can't, it's not like that was ever going to be the good, like, here's our launch game, you know, like that was never going to be a good move for them anyway. So I get why Mario Kart like makes sense to launch with. But yeah, it does. When I first saw the very first reveal trailer where they showed it morphing from a Switch 1 into a Switch 2, and then it showed that little clip of Mario Kart World at the end, I was like, oh, that kind of just looks like Mario Kart 8, you know? So I understand that a little bit, but I don't think it's going to go down the path of the Wii U. I think it's going to do all right. I think most people, when you hear Switch 2, they know it. I think it's just like, I was talking to some like normies recently, and I was at a show. I was at a Maria Bamford show. That's what I should have said I did this weekend. But I was there, and I was talking to somebody there, and I was like, yeah, I did this podcast, and Switch 2 is coming out, so it's all kind of crazy. And she was like, there's a Switch 2? And I was like, yeah, there's going to be a Switch 2. And she like pulled it up and was like, oh, shit, awesome. And I was like, yeah, but it's $450 though. A lot of people are upset about that. And she's like, oh, I don't care. You know, it's just like new console priced. You know what I mean? So I think it's like, it seems like they've been marketing to now a crowd of gamers. You know, they're like 120 FPS, you know, 1080p screen, HDR, VRR, all this kind of stuff, right? Because and it makes sense in a way, because it's like a lot of people that use the Switch now are older, you know, and it's like the next version, you know, so you have to kind of sell to those people, but it's like the Switch 1 was just like sold to the masses, right?
Right. But that leads to a great point of they don't need to sell to the casuals. They've already done that, and they will sell to casuals by being Nintendo. And it is like the hardcore gamers that they're like, okay, well, we got to sell to the hardcore gamers. That's who needs to know that it's a new product.
So is that what you think? Do you think that a lot of their marketing strategy this go around has been trying to court PlayStation, Xbox gamers?
Not necessarily. I think it is their existing user base that wants more, like it's like the quote unquote, like it's like the us. It's the like quote unquote hardcore gamers that are like Nintendo PC maybe, that like need to be convinced that they have to upgrade their Switch. I think that the casuals will like trickle, you know, but I think the people that they're really like feeling like they have to impress are like us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because nothing's going to convert Xbox, PlayStation. Like
Duskbloods might.
Okay, actually. Yeah.
FromSoft.
That is the weirdest thing out of all of this to me, that's the exclusive. Because I was like, that's a whole group of like very dedicated fans that are probably going to buy a Switch 2 just for that game.
Yeah. I think that's the system seller. I
didn't know. I'm suddenly way more interested in this game because I didn't realize like the gameplay style of it is actually more of like a team PvP situation, like an Overwatch Splatoon kind of thing. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be the only thing I play.
You get in, but no, it's true. I mean, it's like stuff like when they said that is it's a Nintendo exclusive FromSoft game. I was like, whoa, okay, that I think was one of the most audacious things I saw in the entire Direct, personally.
Yeah, there's gonna be LAN parties.
Yeah,
it's gonna be me and my squad in a living room playing that.
Jared, that might be my first FromSoft game. Are you in?
I'll be right there with you, baby.
Yeah, FromSoft games like the Soulsborne games, I don't vibe with. I want to. I know they're good. Everybody loves them. I know I would love them if I like could get into them, but I just can't get into them. You know, I don't know if this one's for me.
But it's definitely. I think that it will prove evident. I mean, we'll find out when those numbers show up. I think that is a pocket of gamers that are going to be like, okay, like, and I think from two different groups too, like people who have to play every kind of game that has that gameplay style and FromSoft gamers.
Jared, as a FromSoft gamer, do you think that's what's going to happen? They're all going to buy the Switch 2 for this game?
Dude, yeah. Like the FromSoft nuts. FromSoft gamers are nuts. And I am one, right? I get it. I would buy a Switch 2 to play that game if I wasn't already into Nintendo games.
Because
if we say $80 games are too much, come on.
By it being in like online competitive game as well, that is how they lock people out of just like emulating it on their Steam Deck too, right? Yeah. Like if it was just like a single player campaign, it's like, oh, okay, fine. I'm just going to like emulate it. But like by making it like a very specific style of gameplay, they have forced it into their ecosystem.
It's the weirdest because like that I heard a thing where it's like Miyazaki's like, oh, I'm looking at Escape from Tarkov for inspiration for my next game. And turns out that game is going to be a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive. I was like, what timeline am I living in right now?
Yeah, it's like a word salad sort of situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Meat one.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, I do think that there will be some crossover there. I mean, just as far as Dustbloods is concerned, I can also see that being like a timed exclusive. I could see that it maybe eventually coming out to other platforms. We'll see.
And I don't know, Bloodborne is stuck on the PlayStation.
That's true. Yep. That's true. Yeah, maybe Nintendo was really just like, here's a big satchel full of cash.
Yeah,
please.
Truly.
Yeah.
I mean, and it wouldn't be the first time a franchise had specific games that were locked to specific consoles. I thought that often about Kingdom Hearts games, that, they'll all eventually come to, even on these like complete versions, quote unquote, there are still games that aren't like actually the game version of them on those discs. Like they're still locked, like games themselves are still locked to like the 3DS or the Game Boy Advance and never like got taken off of those specific, like I think it actually now like specifically the Nintendo games of Kingdom Hearts like got stuck on those consoles. So can't say that for sure either. That'll go to other platforms.
We're in an interesting point in the timeline of console releases too, I think right now, because like Switch 2 is going to be dropping now in this point where PS5 and Xbox, they're like 5 years old at this point. Right. So they're getting kind of up there. I feel like in the next like 3 years, we'll be at least hearing about what their release schedule is going to be like for whatever the successors to these consoles are. We've also heard lots of rumbling about the end of this year, portable Xbox, a handheld Xbox coming to market, whether that's just a handheld PC with the Xbox logo slapped on it, who really knows? But Sony is saying there's lots of rumors that the PS6 is going to have like a handheld variant and a home console variant. So I think that it's like Nintendo kind of reignited the handheld in the public persona to begin with. Obviously, we've seen Steam come to market with Steam Deck, but Steam Deck has sold like 3.4 million units or something like that. Nintendo's going to sell that in the first day, basically, of right. Switch 2. So I hate when people draw those comparisons so much, even though I love my Steam Deck. I play it all the time.
Sure.
But it's like, they're, I think, set up right now to capture some of that market before Sony and Microsoft come in with their handhelds. But I just wonder if they are kind of going for more of that core gamer audience, like how long they'll be able to hold that when, 4 years from now, or say less, when PlayStation drops their handheld and it's way more powerful than a Switch 2, are like Nintendo exclusives going to be able to like still keep people in that ecosystem without people moving over? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jordan?
PlayStation handheld is going to cost $700. Like, no question. Like, I think the thing that people really forget is like, I just looked it up. PS5 Slim is $430. So the $450 price point, but I'm like, Nintendo is shaping up for the next console generation. And I can almost guarantee you they are going to be the cheapest next generation console on the market. There is no way a PS6 or an Xbox Series X times 2 361 is going to be less than $600. Like, no question. So like, they're still, whenever those consoles come out, the Switch 2 is still going to be the cheaper of all of those consoles. Like, and I don't think like the Steam Deck's a really fair comparison either, because like, even with the Steam Deck, it's a Linux based system, correct? So like, takes tinkering. Like, Nintendo fans don't want to tinker. They want to put a game in and it plays. You maybe have to download an update. Sometimes
I wouldn't say that. I don't think that that's necessarily a fair characterization of the Steam Deck. I think it's like you can tinker if you want to, but it's like it just plays Steam games. Like
that's not true though, because some games are not Steam Deck compatible, whereas every game you put into your Nintendo Switch 2 will be Nintendo Switch 2 compatible.
I mean, that's also not true because and now we're fighting. But basically, I mean, it has come out that the way that like Switch 1 games work on the Switch 2 is through a compatibility layer, very much like how Steam OS, makes Windows games run on a Linux system, right? So it's like it's not straight emulation and it's not straight backwards compatibility. They've got a layer on top and they've got a list of games that don't work right now. That like there's some that are like they have issues and we're looking into it. And there are some that it's just like it won't even go past the title screen, right? So it's like nobody's talking about that because it's not like because hopefully a lot of that stuff will get ironed out before this comes out. And I think mostly what's going to happen is that publishers and developers are just going to make Switch 2 ports so they don't have to worry about the compatibility layer, whatever happening. But it's like, I do think that it is going to be a little messier than we all think, you know what I mean? And I'm certainly, I don't really think we're fighting, but but you know what I'm saying? I think it's like, I do think it's not going to be, I think the comparisons to Steam Deck, I think are somewhat valid in some ways, but certainly Nintendo is going to want to make it as frictionless as possible.
I think the comparisons to Steam Deck are what they are because usually the people who are making those comparisons are the hardcore, I want to tinker with things gamers. Those are the people that are making those comparisons in the first place. And so like when we are making comparisons, we're like parroting what we see other people who are making comparisons, and they tend to be that group of people.
Yeah. Either way, I'm just curious, like how this console is going to do with normies, right?
Yeah.
Because there's like 100 million or so Switches out there right now, and Nintendo has kind of put themselves in a position where they don't have anything to fall back on for console, right? Like it's always been like we've got our home console, and then we've got if the Wii U fails, at least the 3DS got me. You know what I mean? It's like they've kind of done this thing now where they're like, it is all one thing, right?
Yep.
And you can kind of say a little bit that like they'll still have the Switch 1, and Doug Bowser has certainly said that, and some people have kind of given him crap for saying that. But it's like if Switch 2 doesn't do well, it's like, which I don't think is going to be the case. I think this console is going to do well, but if it doesn't, it's like they don't have another kind of console to really fall back on. Like whenever they were coming out with a DS, they like were like, oh well, we'll still have the Game Boy Advance, like just in case like the DS doesn't really take off. And then DS took off and they're like, all right, fuck the Game Boy Advance. Like, we hate that thing and we're not going to make games for it anymore. But it's like they're just not in that kind of position, which is something to take into account. I don't know if you think that has any credence.
Totally. I mean, like there are so many games on the Switch, which is personally why I like, as someone like someone was talking about earlier, I was for a while a gamer who had a gaming PC and a Switch, and I had an Xbox One well into the Xbox Series X life cycle, and I didn't even buy an Xbox One until they came out with the refresh, and I just bought the original console cheap. And that's exactly what I did for Series X as well. I waited till I could snag one of the disc editions for $300 instead of $500. And I was like, yeah, this is great. Like, this is what I'm waiting for because I have plenty of the original fun games I can play on Switch. And anything that I really want to play that's new, my gaming PC can handle. So like, I think Nintendo has a lot of people in that sphere like that will buy the Switch 2 just for that alone. But it is interesting to see, like, I kind of want to get more into like how the messaging is coming across to the gaming community versus the normies. Because literally while I was on break, my friend texted me from work and he was just like, hey, are you getting a Switch 2 on launch? Because he knows I do this podcast. And I was like, yeah, dude, no question. He's like, Donkey Kong looks really fun. And I was like, yes, you're right, dude. And this
does look really fun.
Yeah, this is April 21st, 2025. So he didn't even watch the directs or anything. He's just now getting the messaging. And he's just like, oh shit, this actually looks like really cool. I'm like, so I think like there is something to be said for like the average gamer, who is used to a higher price point being like, oh yeah, not balking at the price whatsoever. Um, Jared, I kind of want to get your opinion. Like, what do you think the normies versus the gamers? How do you think the messaging is coming across? Because you were talking about your partner coming across as well.
I mean, yeah, just I guess kind of just what I was saying earlier, like that. I think it's overall was like a little confusing messaging, but like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right? It's like, yeah, it's a Switch 2, and Donkey Kong looks badass. Mario Kart World looks awesome, like it and that kind of stuff. The thing that I'm not sure about, right, are like, so obviously I work for an indie publisher, right? So it's like, I wonder how indie games are going to do on the Switch 2, just because like how, like what's going to be like the markup of like, okay, like these, picking something up on the eShop for $10 or $15, it's really cool. It's like, well, somebody going through the process of buying a Switch 2 so they can get like, the big kind of games. It's like, are they going to really bother with that sort of stuff, at least right away? Or is that going to be like a kind of casually go into their thing? Or like, would we even want to port things to Switch 2 because like cost versus like the thing? So that I genuinely don't know. And I'm kind of curious to see how that'll be.
Yeah. I am too. It was kind of been making the rounds in the news recently that Devolver's, there's like some financial stuff recently, and it's like, it sounds like Switch like far and away has been like the best platform for sales, like for Devolver games.
Oh yeah,
would you say that's accurate?
Yeah. I mean, like obviously PC was kind of like been there forever for us, right? But then, yeah, the Switch was like, given so many games second life, and also like just games that needed a extra boost there. It got games on all kinds of platforms, but yeah, definitely the Switch, and so many of the games, it's like they fit the Switch,
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of, it's funny, like seeing Nintendo kind of end up being the home for indies in a lot of ways. I don't think that anyone really saw that coming before the Switch came out, but you're right, it makes sense. It's like something about like playing like smaller games with like smaller budgets and smaller teams, and maybe like the pixel art or low poly styles or whatever. Like it just fits handheld really, really well. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious how it's all going to work in the indie space, because I think that has been such a huge bolster for the original Switch and its library that nobody was really anticipating. And I think that like games like Stardew Valley, that have this like huge crossover casual appeal, like a lot of the people that bought, Switches for Animal Crossing and stuff, like are finding all these kinds of games. And that's like really kind of keeping them going, and keeping a lot of like their purchase habits going and stuff. And I wonder, like, with the eShop seeming like it's going to be one big gelatinous thing for both the Switch and the Switch 2, it's like, are people even going to bother making Switch 2 versions of games? Like, is it like hedging your bets to just like make Switch 1 games for the 100 million audience or whatever that's out there already that works, or start doing stuff for like this much more niche, like smaller audience that you're trying to build up? Like, I can see it being like a hard ask for a developer to like make a Switch 2 exclusive like indie game, right?
Yeah, and like Jordan, you're saying too, like between like the like more casual and hardcore gamers, right? It's like, so like something like Stardew Valley is an exception because that has like a huge audience, especially
it's a phenomenon.
Like, but like a lot of like casual people don't really play indie games, like you kind of, sometimes they do, but it's like most of the time the people that are interested in indie games are like people who care about games. So it's like the Nintendo Switch 2 being more marketed towards like, like we were saying, like more of the hardcore gamer audience. It's like, well, in theory, it would make sense to then put your indie games, like your Metroidvanias, your stuff on the Switch 2, but is the barrier for entry just too high?
Yeah. I also wonder too, like, what are the technical capabilities of these indie games, like, that can probably run on the regular Switch?
Yeah.
So do you just put out a Switch copy knowing that people who own the Switch 2 will more than likely know that it can run on the Switch 2 and just buy a Switch copy and just run it on their Switch 2? I don't know. Like, it just doesn't, I don't know what the numbers are behind the scenes of like what's more worth it to make a version for.
Yeah. Well, a sale is a sale either way, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It doesn't really matter like what platform you're selling it on. Maybe it is like a game like Baby Steps or something that like probably wouldn't be on Switch 1, right? Like, because that's like a PlayStation game.
Yeah.
It's PlayStation. So maybe that's an exclusive, and I don't know exactly what y'all's publishing deals are with that. I'm not trying to get a scoop here or anything, but it's like, but it feels like a game like that was clearly made with like, this is Unreal Engine whatever, and it's like, you know, meant to be more this like Death Stranding-esque visual style, at least, you know, like I could see that stuff coming over. Maybe it just kind of opens up the kinds of games that you're able to sell on Nintendo platforms, right?
Yeah, that's actually a really good example, because that is definitely a very bizarre game that is not an easy sell to anybody.
Right.
But would definitely need to be kind of like cut back for like a Switch version of it. So yeah, I mean, that's honestly, that's a perfect example, and you should wishlist Baby Steps now.
On the Switch 2 eShop? Come on, break it. Give us the scoop.
I can't say that.
All right. I was kidding. Yeah, that's interesting.
Speaking of Baby Steps, because this is like, so my main job at Devolver is I do a lot of the age ratings and stuff like that.
Right.
And so like I get the weirdest DMs all the time. And so like the other day I just got a DM, and it's like this donkey, like a guy with a donkey man wearing a shirt and no pants, and various levels of pixelation on his penis. And it was like, which one of these is going to work for Japan? And I was like, I just woke up, man. I like.
This is in the game. This is like,
yeah. Yeah. They're like, which one of these are we gonna have to do to like get it? And I'm like, oh my god! I literally like, I'll like show I was like, look at the fucking email I just got. Anyway, so
that's great. Yeah.
Love that. So I guess like kind of continuing the normie conversation, but like it's sounding like normies aren't as impacted by the pricing confusion because they're maybe not like keeping up with the immediate news as much as we are. But in terms of like their PR messaging, there has been some pricing confusion. Like a lot of people pointed out that the price wasn't included in the original direct reveal. I think a lot of the theory behind that was they didn't know what they wanted it to cost when they put the video together. At least that's what I'm subscribing to. But now like a lot of these accessories are costing more. And at the top of the episode, we were already theorizing that like future bundles might not cost $500. They might cost more than that. And then it was like, we learned today that some retailers are increasing the price of the new amiibos. And we're talking like upwards $30 to $40. You know?
Yeah, the Street Fighter 6 ones are like $39.99 for each amiibo, which is insane
compared to initial release amiibo. Granted, that was over a decade ago at this point, but they were $16, $17.
I think it was like $16. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, and when I go into a store now, though, that's the price I'm kind of still seeing for the ones that have been on the shelves for a while is $16, $17. You see $30 when it's like a 3-pack, right? So for these individual ones costing $30.
Well, I mean, they're making them in Vietnam. And they're bundling them up and they're shipping them over, and they've got a tariff put on them. So I understand that there's price points. That now they're increasing the price by like 25% or whatever. So I think that's a little beyond the pale. But it is like Nintendo just is in a shitty situation. You know what I mean? Like they picked the worst time ever to launch this thing, right? Like literally the day that the direct happened was the day that Trump was like, everything's computer. It's all expensive now, and it was just like, they couldn't have foreseen that it would happen on the day. Liberation Day was also the Switch 2 direct day, right? So it's like, there's part of this is they got dealt a bad hand, but I do think also they had enough time to kind of prepare, you know? And I think that there is a world in which none of this bad will about price would be happening to them if they had just said it's $3.99 in the direct. And then they were like, oh, wait, actually, sorry, it's $4.49 because of tariffs. You know, if they had started lower and then gone up to this price, I kind of feel like there's a world where people would have been like, you know what, that sucks, but $4.49 after tariffs, I think that's all right.
You think so?
Instead of, I mean, maybe not, you know, but I mean, like, now that I'm saying it, it sounds like less and less realistic. But I do think that it's like nobody would be complaining if $3.99 was in the direct. You know what I mean? I think it being slightly over 400 like really set a lot of people off on a bad foot. And kind of
I think this really confirms that Baron is not a Switch gamer. Like at all.
Baron Trump. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Baron
famous NYU student.
Yeah. He would have just been like, yo, Dad, you can't do the tariffs of the States, the Switch release, man. Like you can't announce it on the same day as the Switch Direct. Are you kidding me, Dad? Like, I don't know. I do think like these marketing strategies go so far in advance and they take so many things to an account. And there's like so many people involved in this. It just feels like, like what you're saying is probably true. That like they didn't announce the price because they knew something like this like might happen. But it's just, I do kind of, now that you're saying it, think there is a world where they announced it and then they raised it and people were like, I get it, you know, because even now people are like, I feel like I get it, you know, but the incremental price for the accessories just is a lot easier to swallow. But like $50 might have been a little too much, but would have been so much that everyone's chanting drop the price. And I think like, and also there's a world where the Nintendo Switch launched last fall and they avoided all of this.
Yeah, I do think that is probably most true. I think if they had started this rollout like last summer, released it like at the end of 2024, I think they could have gotten past all of this. And it's like, you know, obviously it's like the Advance Wars thing, you know, where they're like, oh no, Russia invaded Ukraine, so now we got to put off releasing this game for like 15 months for some reason, or however long it was, you know, like they couldn't have foreseen that happening. But yeah, I do think there were multiple times where we all thought like, you know, our 2024 predictions episode that we did at the end of 2023 was like called the year of the Super Switch. You know what I mean? Like we were like so certain that it was coming out last year. Right. And then now, you know, here we are in 2025 and the thing is like finally coming out. I think it's all, some of it is, I think Nintendo like resting on their laurels as the top of the heap, you know. People like to pretend that Nintendo is not in the console race with Xbox and PlayStation, but they are. They're just like really, really far ahead, you know? So it's kind of like a different kind of race entirely. But it's, you know, we saw the same thing with PlayStation, you know, it's like and Xbox. It's like, you know, I think Xbox kind of fumbled the Xbox One because they were like so in the lead with the Xbox 360, and like PS5 seemed to work out for them, but there was a lot of controversy as well when the PS5 launched. So, you know, I think it's all going to come out in the wash. I think it's all going to be fine. It's just a little surprising after like the kind of just banger after banger of like marketing that they've done throughout the entire Switch life cycle that we're now kind of coming out to anything that isn't just like a ticker tape parade for the Switch 2.
I don't know. Maybe we're being too harsh.
Probably.
Well, you know, they always say that Nintendo consoles go in cycles. The cycle this time just happens to be the marketing strategy is kind of dog shit. But I don't know, man. I really think like overall, I agree with you, David. It's going to be fine. It's all going to come out in the wash. It's still going to sell. I am kind of debating, like, is it going to do Switch numbers at the end of the day?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think it ever was going to. I don't think there was ever a world in which it could, right? Like, and that's okay. Like, that's good. That's fine. Everything can't be the highest selling console of all time. You know?
Yeah.
Right. If anything, releasing the Switch 2 is to ensure that the Switch continues to sell. It's almost like pushing out the next console is so that they can guarantee that they will continue to sell the original Switch, because then there becomes a market of people who are like, oh, well, now I'll get the Switch because it's going to like be the cheaper thing to buy. Whether like, even if it goes even if it doesn't actually go down in price.
At this point, I don't think it will.
Right. That's what I'm saying is, but there's I think there is a pocket of people that are like, oh, well, the Switch is the cheaper thing. So I'm going to buy that because the games that I want to play are still on it. And, you know, based on Doug Bowser's comments, I don't think they are stopping support for the original Switch anytime soon. I think we can probably still see a lot of games that are coming out to both. I mean, in the Nintendo Direct that was a week prior of just games that were specific to the Nintendo Switch, we got a good amount of titles that were late 2025 or 2026. You know, I think Tomodachi Life and Rhythm Heaven are both going to come to the original Switch, as well as have their own Switch version or Switch 2 versions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're kind of right. The $199 Switch Lite is the 3DS to the Switch 2's Wii U. You know what I mean?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. I do think you're onto something, though. It's like the clue that they are planning to continue supporting the Switch through at least 2026 is in the fact that they put out that Direct. Whether or not we want to say that Direct was a banger or not, it doesn't really matter. Like that to me telegraphs they are planning to support this console through the end of 2026. And they want that to be like the long tail. And they're even bringing in games that like I never really honestly expected to see on a Switch, like Patapon, stuff like that, where I'm just like, oh, okay, cool, that's sick. I mean, I will probably
getting ahead
pick
of
it up.
the PSP2 or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like I'll probably pick that up on my Switch 2, but it is a Switch 1 game. I don't know. Yeah, like I'm like just trying to think of like how can they like better communicate to everyone like the difference between these consoles, but I feel like they're doing the best that they can. I don't know where to go with this from here. I feel like we've covered most of it at this point.
Yep.
Okay. Well, if there's anything that you, dear listener, thought that we missed about this, please let us know in the comments or in Discord of just how has Nintendo's PR lately made you feel? Let's talk about your feelings, please.
This is a vibes-based podcast.
Yeah, really. I mean, in this episode too, right? We're just like, it's all vibes. We're all just talking about vibes that we perceive happening. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about all the games that we've been playing lately. Like I said, I was sick this past week, so I've been playing a lot of games. One of those games is a game that got chosen by a game club that I'm in that I was excited to get into. It's called Slay the Princess. Maybe you've heard of it. And I knew it was like a kind of, you know, it was choose your own adventure, like click, did lots of different pathways. But maybe don't load up this game for the first time at 11 p.m. like when you're in bed. This is not at least not the very first time. Like after that, sure, like once you know like what you're in for, play it before bed. I'm a weenie, and this game reminded me of what a weenie I am. It is definitionally horror. When I was looking online though, like from other people about like, oh, how scary is this? People are like, oh, the game's not that scary. Like there's some body horror, but like some of it for me, I'm a baby, y'all. But it's very good. I like very much enjoyed it. I think I'm going to look up most of the other endings without playing it. Cause again,
it's like a visual novel, right?
Yeah, it is. In the sense that, yeah, there's a lot of different pathways. You're just like choosing your choices. But like lots of different pathways. Like some visual novels are just like strictly like this is the story, whereas this is like there are like so many stories. Like really looking forward to the discussion that's gonna come from that as well. Cool. And then, yeah, really quickly, because I needed something to like smooth my brain over, I opened up, the Game Boy Advance NSO app, and because I had mostly been playing Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red lately, but I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna open up Fire Emblem Blazing Blade. I'd been stuck on like the same battle for like 2 years because I just like gave up trying to figure out what to do with it. I opened it up and then I was able to clear it, and I was like, okay. And I've cleared like 3 maps since then. So I think I'm actually going to finally beat this like 20-year-old game. And then over the weekend, mostly just I was alternating between either watching My Hero Academia or playing Metaphor ReFantazio. Finally making some headwind in that. It's really good. Talk to me if you've played it. But I don't want to say too much about it because it's, a 100-hour Atlas JRPG. So yeah, that's me.
I'm still working my way through Echoes of Wisdom. I am now on the last dungeon, I believe. So I'm very close to being to the end of that game. Won't talk too much about that. But then next, I started playing because I got the PS5 in the trade, as I mentioned earlier. So the first game I bought for PS5 was Astrobot, because I'm going to try to get a lot of used games because I got a disc edition, try to get them cheaper. But so before I played Astrobot, though, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll try Astro's Playroom, because I don't think playing Astrobot and then going back to Astro's Playroom is the play. Totally. So I'm like, okay, let me try this first. And then also I wanted to compare it to like something whenever the Switch 2 comes out, I'll have a good comparison between that and Welcome Tour, because like I feel like they're trying to fill the same gap of showing off the technology that's new in this system. And so I played through Astro's Playroom, and it's like it's showing a lot of the technology of the controller off, like all the speakers, the touch screen, the haptic feedback, like on the trigger buttons. And I'm like, oh, this is a really cool like showcase of showing me what is possible on this new console. What makes this controller new through the gameplay is really fascinating. And I'm really curious to see how this compares to Welcome Tour. And I don't know what that's going to be, but that's like my main reason for playing it. And then also because I'm like, I'm never going to go back and play this after I play Astrobot. But between those two games, that's pretty much all I've been playing. Jared, David?
Yeah, I'll go next. I mostly have been playing Blueprints. I love Blueprints so much. Blueprints is my life right now. It's all I think about, all I care about. It's what I will marry and be buried with. That's not true. But it's a really great game, and I'm a huge Myst and Riven fan, as you guys know, and I also like roguelike, so this is roguelike Riven, and it is so much fun. I'm having such a blast with it. Last time I played, I keep starting this game up at like midnight, like you were talking about, which is bad because I didn't bring it in here with me, but I pulled out my old Myst journal, and I'm taking tons of handwritten notes like in it. So it's like, so it's like I finished playing at like 2:33 in the morning, and I've like scribbled all this like scratch in there of like the insane ramblings of a syphilitic man. I don't have syphilis, but you know what I'm saying? Ton of fun. Last time I played this, I almost uncovered too much. I had to put it down, like making too many discoveries all at once. So actually, as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to pop that back open and try to finish off the day that I was doing at the moment. But man, Blueprints is just incredible. I imagine that this will probably be coming to Switch 2 whenever it launches. Honestly, this thing could play on a Switch 1. It should come to Switch. It is fantastic. I bet there's some sort of console shenaniganery going on because I think it's on PS Plus and Game Pass right now. So maybe when those are done with a year or whatever, we'll see it's coming to Nintendo consoles. But the other thing I want to shout out is Mario Super Picross on Nintendo Switch Online on the Switch. I'm a huge Picross head, as everybody knows, but I did have a game day recently with Weast. Recently, we were playing some games online, and I was like, hey, I've heard that you can play Picross online through this like Super Famicom version of this game. And you can. It's got a 2-player version just built in. It's like if you just have 2 controllers connected, it works. So 2-player Picross online is real, and it exists within Nintendo Switch Online. If you have the subscription, you have it right now. I can tell you right now, I can report that it is very fun and very worth playing. So shout out to Picross, shout out to Weast. hopefully all the new Picross games that come out for Switch 2 also have online play, because boy howdy, that is a fun game to play multiplayer. What about you, Jared? You been playing anything cool lately?
Been pretty busy this month, so I haven't had a ton of time for games. But one that I have been playing a bit, and this is going to sound like a shill because it is a Devolver game. But what's funny is that, like, by the time our games actually come out, I don't play them anymore. Like, I'm kind of done with that. But this one, it's like, this is my jam. And so I've actually been playing in my free time. It's called Look Outside. It's an RPG Maker horror game. And those are like a subgenre of game that I love. And it's awesome. You're basically trapped in this apartment complex and something is happening outside. And the people in the apartment are turning into these crazy body horror, like David Cronenberg style monsters. And you are, exploring the apartment, solving puzzles, engaging in, like classic RPG Maker combat. Tons of secrets, tons of, secret party members to find, different ways to go about solving puzzles. It's my jam. I was a big fan of like Fear and Hunger and Yume Nikki and Lisa and stuff like that. So
I love Lisa.
I was like, this game, I played it, and then now that I'm not working on it, I'm like, I'll still play it anyway. And I think it needs some love because it's definitely really, really charming, really cool game.
Yeah, I love the aesthetic of it. I'm on the Steam page right now. It's overwhelmingly positive reviews
because it's damn good. That's why.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Good to hear.
Well, that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you so much, Jared, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we love talking about games. Thanks to MilkyWay.co for our website. Thanks to Corduroy for doing our music. Thank you to all of our patrons on Patreon. You can find me online at Weebwitched.
You can find me online at Bordan.
I'm pretty much ever on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Jared? Where can people find you online?
Oh man, you can't find me anywhere. But I will say, me and another coworker with me, we do have a podcast for Devolver called the Devolver Digital Forkcast, where we interview devs or other industry type people. So if you want to check that out, learn more about kind of behind the scenes of making games and stuff like that, we do that. So yeah, check us out there.
Hell yeah. Shout out to the Forkcast. Shout out to JM. Homie.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah. If you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Blue Sky and Twitter, at Super Switch Headz on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We got a website, switchheadz.com. And then, like Summer said, we have a Patreon. We've got a Facebook group, and we have a Discord. We would love if you would join us in the Discord. What a wonderful community. We've got the best community on the internet. Sorry, Forecast community. Ours is better.
Yours is better, yeah.
Yeah, let's go. But we will have the links to all of those in the description of this episode. Whether you're watching it on YouTube or you're listening on Apple or Spotify, we'd love it if you would leave a review or like and subscribe on the YouTube version. And more than anything, please just tell your friends about the show. Word of mouth goes such a long way, as I'm sure you guys know over there at Devolver. And we would love to have you join any of those communities. So there's that. Thanks again for coming on this episode. What a great time. It was a really great kind of speculative and retrospective episode on how Nintendo has been doing this stuff. We're going to be back next week with another banger of an episode, so don't touch that dial. But until then, you guys know the drill. Stay safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Wish list baby steps on your Nintendo Switch 2 system. Wait. We love you guys very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.